Right. Starting to join. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. We are so happy to have you with us today, and we're going to give people a few more minutes to join. I see there are still a few more in the waiting room. So as people are joining, look, David's already on it. Go ahead and put on the chat where you're calling in from or where you're joining us from today. Thank you, David, for starting that off from Philadelphia, just about 2 hours east of where I am here in the middle of Pennsylvania. And I don't know, I think we were talking a little bit about the weather earlier, Donnia. I think it's supposed to be a little bit warmer here in Pennsylvania today, but I'm in this, kind of chilly little basement area and haven't gotten outside yet. So hopefully wherever you are, the weather is great too. So welcome Roberta from Charlotte, North Carolina, another one of my favorite places here in the US. Brian from Portland, how are you? Good to see you. And they're still rolling in. Of course, we've got Donnia on the call from Knoxville, Tennessee. And yes, definitely God's country down there. It's a beautiful area. And Sean calling in from Bend, Oregon. Never been to Oregon. Been to a few of the Western states, but Oregon is not one of those yet. So I'll have to put that on my bucket list for sure. Evelyn from Ottsville, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure exactly where that is, so I'll have to look that up. But it's good to see another Pennsylvania person on there. And Mark is from Portland, near Sean and Brian. Okay, Evelyn says Ottsville is near New Hope. Well, I do know where New Hope is, so it's definitely that's a beautiful area over there too, around the Lancaster area for sure. And it is Lancaster if you're in Pennsylvania, it's not Lancaster. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think there are still a few people waiting to come in, but I know we have a lot of things to go over today. As always, Donnia has this full hour that we're going to take. So my name is Kimberly Furman, and I'm going to be your community host. We are joined by the absolutely beautiful and talented Donnia Tabor-Hanson. Today, we're going to be discussing famous, fabulous formulas for families in Revit. And I have to make sure to take that slowly because I think that could trip me up. So let's kick it off. Welcome to today's community conversation. Community conversations provide opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live virtual setting to share expertise, get to know leaders in your field, and grow your community network. The sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide conversation, feed important insights back from the community to Autodesk, and support participants in getting connected to the expertise that you need. Sean's going to put some links in the chat for you. And so before we begin, some ground rules and norms. First, everyone's line is muted to reduce background noise. We do invite you to keep your cameras on if you are comfortable, so we can get as close to a physical environment in our virtual world. The conversation should be exactly that, a conversation. Use the Zoom raise hand function, it's down in your lower right corner, and our moderator will unmute you to ask a question. Donnia will also be taking questions throughout and also at the end. Or if you feel more comfortable, you can also type questions into the chat at any time. The session is being recorded and will be emailed to all attendees and also uploaded to our community conversations site. Slide. Okay, all of our legalese. Just quickly, our safe harbor statement. If we make any forward-looking statements, I don't want you to make any purchase decisions based on those statements. If you are making purchasing decisions, take a look at the software in its state today and that alone. Additionally, Donnia Tabor-Hanson is joining us today as a customer expert and is independent of Autodesk. All activities, advice, and opinions shared by Donnia should not be directly linked to Autodesk. And again, my name is Kimberly Furman, and I am your community host, joined by Donnia Tabor-Hanson. And she is an Autodesk Revit certified professional. Some of you may know her as CAD Mama. And today we're going to be discussing some of Donnia's famous, fabulous formulas for families. I wonder how fast I can say that. Famous, fabulous, formless. I can see I can't do it. But first, I understand that your license plate says CAD Mama. Is that true?
It's true. It's true. And it started out with, I worked in an architectural firm that we did log home designs, and 2 big rooms, and it was somebody yelled at me from another room to come help them out. I passed this architect, and he started this sing song, CAD Mama to the rescue, go CAD Mama. So one of the guys from that firm went to Autodesk University with me when it was in Boston, the year they had 4. We were discussing that earlier offline here, and he kept telling me, oh yeah, I work with CAD Mama. And people started going, who's CAD Mama? And it just stuck. And actually there is a frame around my license plate that says my other car was designed on AutoCAD. So yeah, I get comments on that too.
That is awesome. Well, I'm going to let you take it away. Thanks, Donnia.
All right. For famous, fabulous formulas for families in Revit, I love alliteration. So that's where we got here. So we're going to be discussing some formulas. We're going to start with some simple things. I'm going to try to teach you some little nuances about formulas that you may not have caught on to. And hopefully you're going to pick up some really good nuggets today. We're going to end with me giving you some places to go for more research to help out with some more formulas. But I'm going to show you some that I use constantly. A yes/no setting. Yes/no, one of the favorites. It's a quick little thing that's easy to do. And one of the things I'm going to do is let me just set the stage. I'm going to work with this basic little guy. Let me get over to my Revit. And I'm going to start with just a little guy that everybody has seen. This basic little family. You should be opening up. Come on. I did open up a Revit 2020 and said 19. We're going to work with it. It's fine. So I've got this little guy. Everybody's seen this little guy. And I thought, well, he's something. Recently, I had to put some casters and feet on a family. And I'm like, well, I could show that with this guy. So I got to looking at him. And the first thing I'm going to do, if you've been with me for a while during these, you know, I like reference planes and I like them to be named. But I'm looking at this one going, I don't have near enough reference planes. If I'm going to add casters, I need reference planes in here. How do those circles know how far they are, you know, and stuff? And I go to the front view and I'm like, they don't even have a reference plane for this right here. So I just, bless his heart, you know, just bless his heart. Let me tell you, I just updated him a little bit. So let me show you where I updated him a little bit so we can work with him. Yeah, I've already got casters in here, but I haven't got everything set up for it. So in here, I did put some reference planes. I've already loaded the casters and I've locked them down to the reference planes. Anything didn't have to do formulas. I got some feet in here, so I'm gonna have feet. I'm gonna have it with no feet, so the legs go straight down like they are, and I'm also gonna have it with casters. And I'm gonna be using some yes/no parameters for this. I will tell you that the people that built this weren't willy-nilly. If I edit this extrusion, they had come in here and used this. We talked about this one time before. You could turn on the center mark, and that actually dimensioned to the center mark of these circles. Well, that's fine, but I really, you know, needed the reference planes because I was putting feet on there. So these are one extrusion to have the 4 feet, and they're all based on the reference, locked down to the reference plane. The casters are locked down to the reference planes. And so let's talk about what we're going to be doing here. Now that I cleaned his little self up, you know, got a little bit of a few things taken care of. I, you know, debugged them and plan view. I made some reference planes, add some parameters. I need width and depth, not width and length. And if you've been with me a while, you know I don't like the term length for any for any parameter. Width and depth are much better, which, by the way, they're both lengths. And the elevations needed a couple more reference planes to it. So we're going to have to add that. And let me see if I add, it seems like I need to add one. Let's go here to the front view. See, I got my reference plane up here. And I'm going to have, there's 3 types we're going to use. So if I go into there, up here, you can see I've got my measurement things. I don't have any identity data, but I've got my 3 types set up. I've got casters, feet, and no feet. So let's get some yes/no parameters set up for these. I like to work for this one. It's just easy to do this right here. I can go and pick the feet. I'm going to set a visibility parameter. Notice that they are on. And I'm mentioning that to bring up a point home here in a minute. And this is going to be feet. And they're a type parameter, and I can put it under other. Other is where you put things you don't want anybody to mess with. It's for somebody other than the user. Just put it under other. And casters, I can right click and select all instances, an entire project. Come up here. Their visibility was set to off. I'm going to leave that because this is the reason I want to do that, so I can show you what happens. Casters, casters. Okay, now to get the visibility set up for this, I want to show you the formula I would use, because right now the feet were on. Remember, I pointed out how they were already on. So they are on in every type. I don't want to be on in every type. Here's my simple little formula. Whenever you add, okay, this is visibility parameter, and it was based off the visibility of what the object was. If you just add a yes, no parameter that's going to be setting some type of function for you, it automatically will be on. You may not want it on in all your types. So if you're working with several types, you may not want it. So here's your first formula. It's really tough. 1 equals 0. Does 1 equal 0? No. So it turns the yes, no to a no. Now they're all off in everyone. If I hit apply, now I can get rid of the formula. It's off in everyone. I want to make sure it's on in feet. I want to make sure casters is on only in casters. So now I've got all 3 of my types are set, and all 3 of them have the correct yes, no parameter set up for them. So all I did was add 2 visibilities with yes, no parameters. And then I set a formula to set all of them to null. And then I can set each individual type individually. So it's at 1 equals 0. If you want to double check and set all of your yes, no's, if you've added a yes, no, and there's many types, the 1 equals 0 is something I go to a lot. Now we are going to use this little guy in the next one, and we're going to talk about the next formula is going to be a 0 height. You can't have an extrusion locked to a reference plane and make it go 0 height. So if I want the legs to go to the top of the feet, if I lock the legs to the feet, then I can make them move together. But sometimes you just need to have that parameter that can 0 out. And I want the legs to 0 out, but not the feet, because the feet zeroing out means it'll blow up. It'll just blow up. So what I need to do is just add another reference plane and another parameter. And I'm going to set that reference plane for the legs. So I want the legs to move also from the feet to the casters to the floor. The legs got to move in each one of the types. And by having that second reference plane, I can adjust it for that. Now, then I can set an adjustment for the legs above finished floor based on casters, feet, or none. So let's go look at this and set up a nice little formula here. Going into my front view, I create a reference plane. Legs, AFF, above finished floor. I have to make sure that this is also, I'm not going to have it as a strong or weak reference. It's not referenced, not going to be dimensioning to it. And then I can take these 4 legs and bring this up and lock it to this reference plane. Get my parameter set on here by putting a dimension in and then setting that dimension to, I already had legs AFF. Notice it's set to 0, but when I pick on this, it's going to take on the dimension that was here. So now I've got to set it so that it will go up and down as it needs to. And this is where we're going to get into the parameters, the formulas for this. And my legs AFF, I didn't write this one down. This is going to work. This is going to work, I swear. So let's just talk about an if statement. When I first started programming, I started programming Fortran a long time ago. Then I went to Lisp, which Lisp was a derivative of Fortran. And each one of them had an if then else statement. If this, then this, else this. So I'm going to start with an if statement. If feet, so if feet is a yes, then I want the height, this right here, to be the same as the foot height. So I'm going to make it 2 foot. Move that so I can see what I'm writing. The foot height. Now, by if, then, if this, if feet, then foot height, else, hold that thought, because I also need it to move for the casters. So I'm going to have 2 if statements, a double if statement. So if feet, then foot height, but if casters, I just happen to know that's a 5.25 height. So if feet, then foot height, if casters, then this height, else 0. I just have to close 2 if statements. And it seems to work. So in casters, it goes to 5.25. In feet, it goes to the foot height. I change the foot height, 0.75. I hate right fractions. See, it goes on up to the correct height. And if it is in no feet, see that? So let's go ahead and apply this. See there, it went, dropped right down. Let's change it to the feet. And yes, the legs went right up to where the feet were. And if I change it to casters, the legs go right up where the caster was. So that's a double if statement, but it's your first introduction here to if this, then this. If this, then if this else. If this, then this, else this. So there we go. That's almost as good as saying the famous fabulous formulas to families for Revit, you know. So that was our next one. So how are we doing? Any questions so far? And feel free to put your comments in the comments. Like if you think that was a really great one, go, I needed that. Now I understand that, or, you know, you're doing great. Or Donnia, what were you thinking? But, you know, whatever you need to put in the comments, just, you know, feel free to go ahead and put things in the comments. If you have any questions.
Howard says already learned something. And I think that was off of the first tip that you showed us. So there you go. Your work here is done.
The work here is done. No, we got more. This is fun.
1 = 0. That's what he was referring to.
Yeah, the 1
That's
equals
awesome.
0. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's nice because if you put in I'm typical about doing several types, and then I throw in a yes, no parameter, and oh yeah, I gotta go back and fix that on each and every one of them. So if you know you want it to be off most of the time, then you know, make it go off. You know what to be on, you can put 1 = 0 to turn it all on. You know, it has to do with whatever that mathematical formula is. Is it true or false? Yes or no? So we're done with this little guy. You can go bye-bye now. All right. So let's set some multiple options for one visibility. This came up last week, I think, in the Autodesk Revit community group on Facebook. And I had told him, I just put out there that I was going to be doing this formula thing. And I said, well, here, since somebody mentioned formulas, here's the answer to this one. I think he said it didn't turn out to be the one he wanted, but it still got me in the mind of I really need to put this into here because it's something people were asking about. And if you have several options that you need to turn on for visibility for one thing, it's not that difficult to do. If you look at it in this manner, I do it what I call a spinner, which I set up. There we go. I threw something together. And what I have is I have options, up to 6 options. So here is option, and you set option down here. But if set option is 1, you're going to turn the 1 on. If it's 2, you're going to turn the 2 on. Now down through 6. And right now it's set to 6. So if I go through the spinner and go back to 3, up there, set it to 3, checkbox of 3. And just to let you know what's in here, I have a circle, 1 element. I have 2 arcs. I went with a triangle for 3, a square for 4, a pentagon, and a hexagon. So that's how my elements go. And it's easy to go in there and set this up because you can set this up now to show you what the parameter is. It is an integer parameter. So it can't be like 3.5 or a, it has to be an integer. And by doing that, you can set this with a spinner on it, what I call a spinner, and you can go up and down. Now the formula here So you need to only allow for one option. So that's what this does. By having an integer in there, it's going to allow you for just the one option. You can't have more than two, more than one open at the same time. But we, so it set up the spinner, but we want to set up a min max on it. You don't want them to go, you want them, if they go down too far, you want to just stop at 1. And if they go above 6, you want to stop at 6. So let's go look at the min max for this, and that's right here. And it's an if statement. If option is less than 1, then just set it to 1. So if this, then if this, then this. So if option 1 is less than 1, set it to 1. And to show you that, I just go down to -2. Well, it sets it at 1 and leaves the circle on. If option is greater than 6, just set it to 6. So if we go up to 7 or 8, it's going to set it to 6. And if it's not less than 1 or greater than 6, then just set it to whatever the option is. That's why if I go back here to 4, well, it just sets it to option because it's not less than 1, it's not greater than 6. So it's going to set it to the option. So you've just figured out how to get a min max going in here. So you can't have them go too far or too less without having some way of a safety net of setting something instead of nothing being there.
Donnia, is that set option, is that also an integer parameter?
This, good question. Always good to call me on it. Yes, it is an integer. And these are just visibility. Yes, no parameters.
Awesome.
And notice I put them all under other. My thing is under constraints, if you want them to play with it, under other, if you don't want them to mess with it, that's for somebody other than them. So that's typical. That's what I've been teaching you guys all along is what we do. Some people like to make sure if it's electrical, they put it under electrical. If it's text, they put it under text. If I want them to mess with, there's not going to be that many of them. I put them all under constraints. These are the things you need to go to. So they don't have to go searching through the entire instant parameters on the screen and scroll all the way down. That's why I put it all under constraints for them. But yeah, good question. Always call me out if you need to. Now, the next thing is you can have some hints in there. And you may want to have some hints to tell them, well, just what is a 1 mean? What does a 2 or 3, what does it mean? So I don't know if you caught me when I opened this up, this was open and I closed it down. So here's another formula that I set. These are text values. And I'm using these only so that I can give them a hint. And since there was too many of them, I put options and options continue. So you got your option. Your option is, and here's your options you can choose from. Here's options continued. But I don't like them here. Where would I put them? Under constraints. So I'm going to move these up under constraints. When I created them as text, they immediately came into text. Fine. And I did that on purpose to show you how I would bring these up here because you want to have them near. So yeah, that default elevation, I'd like to kill that one. But we don't ever use it. When I go in here, options, now I can either have the option above or I can have it below it. But let's look at that when it goes into a project so you can really see how this would work. And I bring this in, it was set on 4. When I go to pick it, see over here, I can even expand my dialog box. So that I see that my options are 1 for circle, 2 for arcs, 3 for triangle, etc. So if I go in here and set it to a 3, I'm going to get a triangle. So by having those hints in there, and you're like, well, I don't use triangles and circles and arcs. Okay, what if you had this for a window and you were setting it to have 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, or 3 lights, 4 lights, 6 lights, whatever you know, however you want the buttons to turn on or off is another thing you could do with this type of visibility parameter. You could use it for windows and putting your different types of buttons on there. And you can have it where your little hints would tell them what they're going to get when they choose that. And these could be, I set them to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They could say actually what it is. So if it was 3 lights, 4 lights, etc. No, you can't. It has to be an integer. Rewind that, back that one out. You have to have this, your hints say what they're going to be. But that's one way you can use this. And using those hints, that's nothing but a formula that's text And to have the text go in there, you just put it in between two double quotes and slide that right on in there so they can see what you're talking about. I have used that several times over the years. I love that one. Any comments on that one? No.
Yeah, David mentioned that using the formula for the text hints prevents users from changing the value in the project.
Yes.
Which is very true. That's a,
Mhm.
that's a great point.
Yeah, we're gonna look at another time when I use text formulas.
Yeah, yeah. And Assis gave you kudos for this presentation. A few years ago, he needed to create very complex family for a client. Thought he knew about formulas and learned one thing that we all learned something new. So yes, I can say the same. I've already learned something during this session. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Mark asks, and this is probably more a question for Sean and I, do you know if Autodesk has plans to develop formulas further so the field can smartly recognize and populate other parameter names as you type, similar to IntelliSense for Python? That's a great question, Mark. I don't recognize it being on our roadmap at this time. I would suggest that you do a search of the Revit ideas and see if anyone has submitted that one yet. And if not, feel free to add it. So that's kind of where I'm not really familiar with IntelliSense for Python, but I do get the gist of your ask. So yeah, thank you for asking that.
There you go. So now let's get to the next. After showing my hints, I'm going to tell you how many if statements can you string together? I had formulas that include some if statements that I actually had to pull my dialog box over the next screen. So I don't know how big a formula you can get, but just to give you an example of one that I use every day. The situation is when we put in bolts, if you work with Revit, you know that bolts are, there's a number of bolts, that's it. We have occasions that we need to do dual voltage. I'm working kitchens. If you didn't realize that, I work in kitchens and everything having to do with food and buffets, anything like that. So if talking about the buffet, if you go to a buffet, there's a heating element down here that they put the food, pans of food in. There might be lights up here. The lights are on 120. The bottom of it is on 208, but we need it to schedule both of them for one. So we used a text value to show in our schedule what the voltage is. And it's called TM dual volts. It is a text value. And we use a formula to send it to send whatever the volts is to the text value. So here I've opened up, I started a new project with my electrical template, which, you know, you should always have your templates for the various things that you build. So if I have something that just has electrical, it's in here. And here is my TM dual volts, and you see it's blank. It is a text parameter under the electrical. And here is my volts, which is electrical, and it's you're not changing it. It's hard coded. So if I need something to have 120 volts, I type it in here, and here's my formula. Now let's look at this formula. Give me some room. Let's go ahead and stretch this out. Oh, come on, come on. There we go. Come with me. Not there yet. Not there yet. Need more room. I don't think this goes to the next screen. Ah, there it is. So we're going to talk about this, and this is utterly ridiculous. I should not have done this. This is crazy. I'll get back to this in a minute. Let's go over here. Okay. I'm going to bring up here it is. Here's the formula. But to get the dual voltage, it's depending on a checkbox, a yes/no parameter, where up here we have a yes/no parameter for 120, 208 dual voltage. This is something that the company had when I got there, and I've just stuck with using it with that name because you have to have it in your shared parameter file. So this is something that's a custom shared parameter for my company. So if you have this checkbox and it's 120, 208, and it just says 120, nothing happens. But if I change this to 208, I get dual voltage in my schedule. And the reason why, let's go look at it over here. And when you're doing if statements, whenever it comes to the first true statement that it can use, it will use it. So if voltage is 120, set it to text value 120. If it's 277, set 277. It's 115, set 115. If it's 480, set 480. Here's where we get busy. Now we're introducing a Boolean expression. And if you want to have fun when you're working on formulas and stuff, and your boss comes by, give him one of these and go, I got multiple if statements and about 2 Boolean expressions I'm trying to work out to get this formula right. And at some point during that statement, their eyes have glazed over and they will move on. Man, they're busy. Have fun with it. So I've seen this happen. So you get this and statement in here, and Revit put these brackets in here. This started happening a couple of versions ago. It put the brackets in for me. If 122.08 voltage, if that's yes, and volts are 208, then set it to 122.08. And that's what I did a minute ago. So when I'm doing something like this, I always set my volts to the higher voltage, so that if someone like an engineer is reading our volts, he at least has the higher voltage in there. So I can go in, and if that is checked and it's set to 208, then put the text value of 122.08 in my TM dual volts. And then if this, then that. And last week I added this one. I didn't have 230 in there. I had it set for dual voltage for 230, but I didn't have 230 in there. And now here's something else. You can do formulas more than just in families. And I was talking to one of the guys at one of my sister companies. Trimark is a huge company out in the South. There was somebody from the North, and he and I were chatting about this formula. And he said he thinks he wrote the original. They had it when I got here 8 years ago. And I said, could be. And I showed it to him. He says, nope. I said, well, I may have tweaked it a little bit. He said he takes it and he puts it in the schedule so that when the family comes in, TM dual volts is in the schedule and it reads it in the schedule. I said, that's great, except if I get something that is not in here in this formula and I have to put it in, then he would have to go in and change that formula into the schedules. There are 4 schedules in our template that have electrical. There's a working electrical schedule, a print electrical schedule. There's a working full utility schedule and a full utility print schedule. And there may be others, but that's at least 4. You'd have to change that formula every time. Well, by putting it in the family, I can override it. So if I came up, I'm gonna make something up. If I came up with something 260 volts, I could just drop into the formula right here and change this. If this is gonna be 260, it's not gonna be 120. So I can change this right here to 260 and that to 260, done, and move it on. Send the family out, put it up in the library, and we're good. So it's a matter of, you can do formulas other places, but we're talking basically because I do Revit families, we're talking about doing here, but I just wanted you to be aware. But when you're doing something like this, be aware of the consequences. If this formula, all it's ever going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be with this one. This one's changed too many times on me, but that's just another way you can use formulas. And I use formulas all the time in schedules and stuff. One day we're going to do Revit families for new schedule families too. This is going to be good. So now that's all. That was good. I didn't click on this and go here. So yeah, I just added this one. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 if statements, and there could have been more. So how many if statements can you have? I got 9. So the next one, how we do it? Did anybody have any questions about that? That was
no questions, but there's been some good discussion about easier ways to, well, not easier maybe, but other ways to bring your formulas into Revit, and Notepad++ is a great tool for helping to do that as well. And Ossie says there's also code editors that can help organize formulas for Revit. So rather than typing in that little box, that little dialog box that we have, use the tools that you have for sure.
I wrote Lisp in DOS Edline. So
nice.
Oh, and I wanted to point out my else statement is right here, and it's 2 double quotes together, which leaves a blank in text. So if you need text to blank out, 2 double quotes right together leaves it blank.
That's
and I want to come back.
Awesome.
Was there something else?
I think that was it.
Okay, let's go. Round them up. No, round them down. We're going to round them down. This came up a couple of weeks ago. And there's just times that you want, sometimes arrays need a little more space. You don't want, if you've got an element being arrayed and you've got it contained to a space, which is typical. So a lot of times your array is actually the width divided by how many, or by a number that represents how wide something is. But you don't want them to, you may want them to butt up against each other, but you don't want them to overlap. And when they need to fill in the space, but they don't need to overlap, is where this formula came up from. And let me go ahead and get out here and let me bring this up. This guy. This is a walk-in curtain. You might see them in stores where they have something between the cooler and you that you can walk through the plastic and get in there. So no, not that one. We're in the front view. So like I've taught you when doing arrays, it's better to have a nested item. I have a nested item in here. I'm going to edit the group and show you this is a panel strip. And the panel strip has got its width equal to the width, the panel width. And then there's a panel height for the panel height. So I've brought my nested family in to do the array. And my array is the array number. Now, I've got all the formulas in here, so I don't have to write any of them. That was good, but that one got by without messing up. But I've got the formula in here, and basically it's just a matter of having the width divided by the panel width to give me my array number. The other formula here is the height minus the curtain top height to give me my panel height, and I could change those if I wanted to. But when I do this, this is the number that is, by panel width. So it's 33 minus, or divided by 4. So if I change this to 34 divided by 4, oh, that's fine. I don't need that. It's out of the way. There we go. It's 9. What happens then with my panels is now, you can see my panels are overlapping, and I can't have them overlap. So the formula, simple as this, to keep it so that I don't want it to hit 9 until it hits 40 or 36. Yeah, hooked on math, good for me. And when it hits 36, that's when I want it to change to 9. So you can use round down. Simple as that. Rounds it down so that it only goes up to 9, not at 35. But when I hit 36, there it goes. If I hit 39, still at 9, doesn't change again. I keep hitting that. Doesn't change again until I hit 40. So therefore, I have an array that never overlaps with a simple thing as round down. Easy peasy. Very simple parameter, very easy to do. Just remember that when you're working on your arrays. If you don't want it to be overlap, that's a very easy one to do. Any questions? There is a round up if you need something to round up. So there's also a round. So you can't round them up. I just rounded down. And you see, I'm picking on formulas that I use all the time. So I wanted to make sure that I was using things that are bringing things that people use, because I use these daily sometimes. How about was any questions about that? Okay, good. How about an array of 1? Can't happen. Gotta happen. Can't happen. Gotta have it. Sometimes you just need to set a safety net so that that array keeps from blowing up. You can have an array of 2 or more. And the safety net is when you can set one of the object there and just turn the array off. If the array is going to be less than 2, you want to just turn it off and set the 1 there. So that's what we're going to look at here. So with an array family, there can't be a single object. So I place an array, I'll call it my array of 1, and then put the 1 object there. The 1 nested item, I place in there. And then I set the visibilities for the array of 1, and I set the visibility for the multiple array object or objects, whichever you've got, if you're doing more than 1. And the array visibility is based on having the array go no less than 2 objects. That's how you want to go about it. If the array is going to be 2, it's going to be less than 2, you're just going to turn off the array and you're going to turn on the object. And then that's how you want to set your visibility. So let's go look at that. Simple little guy. I just used some boxes. Come on. I still build in 2019 because I have to build to the lowest common denominator of what we use. We use anything between that and 21 right now. We haven't had any architect requests to go to 22, but then we're the last ones to the projects. So we don't choose what we work with. Anyway, here's my array of 1, my little box. And you see the others are all part of this array. Notice it says array num is the one that's controlling the array. So when I come into here, I have my box size and depth and height stuff set. I don't need these right now. I'll end up picking them anyway. My array spacing is what I can set to have how far apart I want these. And my, go ahead and bump that up. That kind of is in my way. And my width is what's going to be the distance of my array. So if I set this to 6, okay, you see how that sets it up. See, this one's not really there because he has a visibility set to array off. To get the array on, all you have to do is go into one of the objects in the array, and set it to a visibility of array on. So when the array is on, you're going to see the array. When the array off is set, you're going to see that. Now let's look at the formulas that help all this work out. Array off, if the array count is not here. This is the spacing and the width. The array count is the width divided by the area spacing. That's the array count. This is an integer under other, of course. And the array num is what controlled the array. Remember I pointed that out? So it is, if array count, if this guy is less than 2, just set me to 2. Else, set me up to the array count. So there's your if then else statement. If this array counts less than 2, set me to 2. Else, go ahead and set me to the array count. So if this, I'll go up here and goes to 24. This gets set to 2. This gets set to 1. The array off checkbox is there. The box is there. The array on is not checked. If it goes to 12, that gives me at least 2. So the array is back on and the box is back off. The singular array count of 1. So let's load this. Let's just load this into the project and look at it, because I think it's easier when you don't see all of them together. So there's my array of 2. Let me go to 3D view. Make it easier. When I pick on this, I can set this to be 3 and this to be 48, whatever, just go big. Now, if I set this then to 48, it goes to the middle. Now, I put my box, my single array in the middle because my array is growing outwards from there. You may want to set your singular object to one side of there. If the array is linear, you want to set it to the other side. So as simple as that is, it does so much to keep your arrays from blowing up. Any questions on that?
No questions. We did have, Catherine mentioned that to limit voltage options for equipment, she's been using family types to create a drop down for the end user to choose from. And she gave an example there in the forums. And so that kind of, poses the question, is there an advantage to either one, to creating different family types, or to use the formulas and options that you showed us?
Well, Frank, I keep that formula in there because when I build a family, I don't know what's coming at me, and I have to build off whatever the spec sheet is. And our formulas, our voltages are set by whatever that piece of equipment is. So I'm not giving a chance to do a variety of voltages. So I can see where, okay, let's put it in another context. It's not voltage that she wants to do a drop down, and you can have drop downs for all kinds of things. Can you ask her to put that in the chat so we can look at it later and discuss it? I would love to carry on the discussion after today on that.
Yeah,
After
she did put a
discussion.
link in the chat. So
Fantastic.
yeah, so that's
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah,
I love this. This is why it's called conversations.
right.
I
Yeah,
love this. All right. So
yeah. Howard said he had to look it up, but Howard did an if statement once for a pipe fitting that was 1,352 characters. There were 30 if statements.
yes.
So still no limit.
There's my
So,
hero. Yes. I love
right,
it. I love it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at the time. Let's get into one family that's going to have several formulas in here. I want this one. Now, while you update, let me also bring up this. This is actually a catalog. And I'm going to show you when I use the catalog and when I don't use the catalog. I can use the catalog for a lot of things, and then I won't. So this has got like two different materials, but it duplicates the sizes, different model numbers and weights. So the rack width, there's some hooks on here. Oh, you don't see the hooks until I go into fine detail. So there's hooks on here. It's a pot rack. So let's just start at the bottom of this one. And I was going to look at, it set an absolute text value. We've already looked at that a little bit. That's where you go in there and you put the text in there. If I want to make sure that that manufacturer's name always stays Eagle Group, double quotes, Eagle Group, punch it in, nobody's going to touch it. Because they would have to edit the family to get into it. They can't do it by editing type. Love that. I could also do the same thing for here, but we're moving on. I've got things to do. Set an on-off switch with a formula, a yes/no for turning something on or off. Very easy. That would be this next one right here. Top rack width. If it's greater than 7, then the center support turns on. If I scroll in here and look, you can see that this one is grayed out. But then if I come in here and set this, my dimensions, the top rack width, if I go to 108 and apply it, and apply there, it turns on. So it's based off of that formula right there of whatever that's going to be. So it turns it on and off. Simple. It's, and that's when you need a center support. So you guess it gets so big, another support in there. A mathematical length formula, too easy. Let's go look at that. Here. And I don't even have to have the parentheses around it. I can just say top right now. Here's my trick. You come up here and you copy, you come down here and you paste. See, I can come down here and paste that. I'm not going to leave that there. I can paste that in. And I know that the bottom rack width is always 2 3/4 inches smaller than the top. So that's an easy fix, an easy mathematical formula using a parameter name and whatever the length is supposed to be. A simple if statement. We've already looked at a few if statements. So a simple if statement is this top one right here. If top rack width is less than 29, if this, then set it to 14, else set it to 20. Well, let's look at the, there's only one where it's set to less than 29. I could have said if it's equal 28 or less than 29. So you could do various things with it there. So if it's set to 28, that value goes to 14. Now here's another one that changed. And this one has got, let's just jump to the end. How many if statements do we have? Oh, it goes too fast. I've got it over here. Let's go look at this if statement and look at what it does. Okay, so simple if statement, we've already discussed. If this, then this, else this. And this one is a multiple if statement with the Boolean expression. And here's what that statement, what that if statement is. If the top rack is less than 29, make it 6.5. If, now we're introducing the or. If it's 41 or 112 or 136, set it to 12.5. Else, if not this, then set it to 12. And in that Excel file, oh, I closed it. I didn't mean to close it. That. In that Excel file, we see the various sizes tab, and that was like looking for the, if it's less than 40, I don't know why I went less than and not equal to there, and have it equal to this one, and equal to 136. So you can see it's a few of them. And now I want to look at one other one here. I put an array in a catalog versus multiple if statements. And back to that Excel file, the quantity of hooks. And this is going to show up in, and I know I'm kind of going a little fast here, but looking at the time. Like, come on. Well, cancel. Whatever we did wrong, I didn't mean to. Cancel. Oh, I shouldn't have left it like that because that's run by the catalog. Let's undo that. Yeah, I overdid something that was run by the catalog. So here's where you find the quantity of hooks is in between here and here. These out here are set certain distances. So every time it gets bigger with the catalog, I want it to change. And I didn't do that with a if statement or a formula because when I look at the quantity of hooks, they go 2, 2, 2, and then it goes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm working in Excel. This is too easy. And it starts again with it duplicates the 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So just to show you, it could have been done with an if statement. This would be the if statement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 statements in here. It ends on 9, which is really funny because one reason I wouldn't want to do that is because if it's less than 53, set it to 52. If it's 64, set it to this. What if it's 60? 60 is not mentioned in here in any of the if statements. Then it would go to 9. So to me, it was easier to leave it in the catalog and just let the catalog run it. And it would be to try to do an if statement, which would give somebody a chance to muck it up somehow. So that's a case where I didn't use an if statement, which could have, or a formula, which I could have, but instead left it in for the catalog to take care of. We've hit the Q&A. We have the time. Any questions there?
Great timing. Let's see, Sean posted, and this is a good reminder that this conversation doesn't have to stop, when we're done here today. You can continue that conversation in the forum where this community conversation is located. And Sean put that link in the chat for you. So feel free to continue this conversation after we're done. Steve mentioned that he didn't know you could copy parameter names like that. That is very helpful because we know in formulas, our parameters have to match exactly. So yes, that is very helpful to know for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we did that. Here's some examples of conditional statements, and I'm just going to bring it up here. I'm going to post these links in the chat, but I have 3 websites. This is a good one to go to for conditional statements to check your syntax. They do give you an if with a logical and. If and this and this, then make it 8 else 3. Here's one with a string that you can put in. Yes, no with conditionals. Look here, there's no if or anything. You just say length greater than 40. That is an implied conditional statement. And these are good to look around. Here is my array. Right there is where I learned that one. If the array param is less than 2, set it to 2, else the array param, the array parameter. And I can post any of these families if you go for them too. Don't forget to look at these things on the, on the bottom to look for resizing elements, things like that here. The next, the next one is Revit formulas for everyday usage. I found this, and sometimes I like to go to it just to see what they've got. It is on the Revit forum, so I'm going to go back over to my, why is it I've lost my browser? I've lost my browser on the bottom of the screen. Old-fashioned, go to it. There we go. Now this is the one from Revit. And you end up, I didn't log in, you end up with some pop-ups and stuff here. But this one's a good to go to and start looking at. Here's your force yes. I didn't even notice this before. Here's your forcing yes or no. Conditional statements. If condition result is true, result is false. That's if then else statement. Here's other things you can do: the greater than, less than, equal, your ands, ors, and nots. Your simple if statement. So this is good to go and review here also. And the last one is valid formula syntax and abbreviations. This one is on the Autodesk site. So, okay, gosh, Donnie, where'd you go? Make that go away. Go over here. This one is one I go to a lot. He gives you all the things he can get in a sine, cosine. I don't have any reason to use those. Here's your round. You can round and you can round up or round down. And it shows you examples of these things over here. So it's nice to have that. Like you want to do an area, this would be your parameter area, and your formula would be your height, asterisk your width, etc. So it does give you nice examples here. And again, using conditional statements and formulas. If length this, here's a multiple if statement. When I was first writing multiple if statements, I referred to this page a lot. But yeah, these are the things that you can go and start looking at. And also we'll keep the chat going here. If you have trouble with the formula, let's put it in there and let's see if we can debug it. But I hope everybody had a good time today. I know I did. I loved it. When the dogs stay quiet for the most part.
It's nap time for the puppers.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This has been a great session, Donnia. And certainly thank you for that. Timing's perfect. All right. So we're going to wrap up today's session with 2 final slides. If you are looking for other ways to connect and engage with the Autodesk community, we have a few resources for you. So you can explore the various Autodesk communities, including the global network of user groups and the Autodesk Group Network, our industry-focused communities helping your colleagues solve business challenges together, the Autodesk forums, which include those Revit ideas, and stay connected with us on Twitter and Facebook, including several new Facebook groups for specific products. Also, if you are interested in presenting your own community conversation, please reach out to us. I believe Sean's going to put a link to a survey in the chat. Please take time right now to fill that out. It'll only take you a minute or so. We certainly welcome your feedback.
Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So continue to stay connected in the Autodesk community. We hope to see you next time. Donnia, this was fantastic. As as always, there's always something to learn. I don't care how long you've been using Revit. Learning from other people, from other colleagues in the industry is a great way to increase your skills. And so I thank you for this time, CAD Mama. And I hope
thank you for my CAD Mama.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for attending. And stay tuned. We have one more community conversation next week on Dynamo, and then we're taking a break until January.
Yes.
I'll be back. I will.
Yes.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Okay, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your week.
And great holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.